go on to introduce the speakers. And today we have Dr. Ajwa Jaba, who is a Ghanaian and she's passionate about international medical education. She completed her undergraduate education MBBS in Hunan Normal University and is currently pursuing her postgraduate in pediatrics in Wenzhou Medical University, still in China. Her YouTube channel, IMG Connect, is a platform where international medical students and graduates from across the globe connect and provide a supportive network for medical graduates. So our next speaker is Dr. Cindy. Dr. Cindy, or soon to be doctor, is a medical student in Jilin University, China. And in high school, the uncertainty of which career path to take led her to do her O levels in all business courses, all art courses, and all science courses. And yet, she graduated as the top student in her high school. That's amazing. After college, she worked in the corporate world for a global marketing company for 3 years before deciding to further her education to study medicine in China and is currently in fifth year of her MBBS program. All right. So it's like they're on the hot seat. Yes. Okay, so we just proceed and we'll begin with Dr. Ajwa. Could you please tell us a little about yourself? Who is Dr. Ajwa?
Dr. Adra is just a simple lady, down to earth, with a passion for medicine and healthcare in general. That is the best form of healthcare being delivered to humanity. And so, with an early passion for medicine, I just knew right from the start that this is what I wanted to pursue for my life as one of the goals. And by God's grace, I've been able to follow in that path right through MBBS, now doing my postgraduate course here in China in Wenzhou Medical University. Yeah, so briefly, that's me.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
So,
welcome.
Dr. Cindy, who is Dr. Cindy?
Doctors, these titles. Oh my God.
I
Okay.
know.
Well, I'm Jamaican raised, well, Nigerian born, Jamaican raised. I am passionate about art. I am in love with dancing and I do like to do charity organizations. I have an organization back home called Feeding Up 100 where well, I haven't got to do much more because I've been studying abroad, but usually when I'm back, I do a initiative where I feed at least 100 persons on Easter Day every year. Yes, so that's
All
it.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
So, our next question is why medicine? There are so many reasons why people choose to study medicine. Maybe for the name, to be called a doctor, and so many other funny reasons. But we want to know today, why did you choose to study medicine? Why did you opt for medicine, Dr. Ajwa?
Wow, it looks like I'll have to answer first for every question. Okay, so for me personally, I would say medicine chose me. It might sound weird, but then from a very tender age, my mom bears this memory so well where she tells me of how we went visiting someone in the hospital. And then, whilst they are seeing this individual, I leave the place walking around in the hospital saying that I'm going to help people. I don't even recall that memory. But then I remember from a very early age, I knew whenever he asked me, what do you want to be in the future? I said, I want to be a doctor. So deep down within me, I had that passion deep down within me. And as I grew up, the interest got more and more. And so my why is basically maybe medicine chose me. I don't have any self driven, it just happened. So I can't really explain it. Yeah, so that's the why for me.
The why, huh? Medicine chose you. Wow.
Yeah, it chose me. It looks like I kind of didn't have a choice. It chose me, and everything else just fell in path. And then I found myself in med school. The interest
Oh,
grew as well. Yeah, but then I didn't like make a decision. I don't remember the point in time where I was like, okay, so I want to pursue medicine as a career. I just had it in my heart all along, and yeah, it happened.
that's amazing.
Okay, so why medicine? I don't know.
Good
Like I
answer.
would want, I'm telling you, honestly, I did not know. Like going through high school, as cliche as it might sound, this was more of my parents' dream. Personally, I wanted to be a lawyer. Like law was always it for me. My mom was just like, no, no. So I'm just like, okay, mother, this is what you want. I'm gonna do it. And during the process, like while going through the entire process of studying and learning, I realized like, okay, this is not so bad actually. Like I may actually like doing this. What really piqued my interest was actually this show called I Did Not Know I Was Pregnant. It's a reality show that is shown, I think MTV or TLC. And I think watching that constantly every weekend, I was just like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. I know that anything that has to do with female health, because it was just absurd. Like, how can you not know you were pregnant, right? So I'm just like, this is it. And that was just it for me. Like I went through having seen my brother got sick at a very young age. I think that also drove me into the medical field, like knowing like I don't want to see anybody go through what I saw him go through. So yeah, that's the story. That's how it became medicine.
That's great. Because I've heard from people who want to study medicine. Of course, there's the section of money of the finance aspect, but there's so many people that have other weird reasons why they study. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, in some cultures, you're more valuable when you study medicine. So,
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to your study experiences in China. Now, when most people talk about their study experiences, they just relate it to one side of the equation. They don't talk about the other side, or they don't talk about, but we want to look at both sides of the coin today. So, your study experience in China, we'll begin with the good and the bad. Dr. Cindy, the
finally,
good and the bad.
We're going with me this time. Okay.
yeah,
China. I made some points and I'm just trying to go through that. Okay, so study experience in China. I'm not sure if everyone went through the same thing, but for me, I think I had an epiphany. I woke up one morning and I'm just like, wow, I am not home. Like this is not me taking a taxi. Like I am nowhere home. Like it was different. It was different. I don't think it hit me until like 1 month in. I was just like, whew, like anything could happen right now and I can't run home. Like I'm literally on the other side of the continent, like on the other side of the world. So we have issues. Like I think everyone, if you did not study Chinese prior to commencing your course, there's always going to be that language barrier. So that was a major thing for me. There was a culture shock. So Western world type of lifestyle that I was living was totally different from what I was seeing here. And I mean, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to come to China to study, because I felt at some point in my life, I felt like I was becoming very stagnant. I just needed a change. So when I got here, the culture shock was way beyond, like, especially with my
360
classmates.
degrees.
I'm telling you, like, especially with my classmates, majority of my classmates are Muslims. No, it was hard. Like it became a thing where I had to be self-conscious of what I'm doing so not to offend another person, because I mean Jamaican culture, Americanized, like we're very free, we're very open. And I now had to feel like, okay, there's certain things, the way I would dress had to be like, I had to be cautious, because I mean, Ramadan is coming up. I can't try to make someone, like there are things that I had to constantly be thinking about. I'm just like, wow, like this is a lot. Like this is not just you living your life. Like you have to be considerate of other persons. There was also the slope in terms of teaching delivery. It was not like how medicine would be taught back home. Like I felt like here I was almost teaching myself medicine. I had to force myself to read constantly. I had to put in extra work that I may not have needed to do if I was doing this back home. Like it was just like I needed to keep up at the pace that persons back home are at, because when I go home I can't say, oh, I studied in China, so please be lenient on me. Like they're not gonna take that as an excuse. So you had to put in the work, like these are all factors that you're considering. I wasn't used to being in a classroom because I started in 2016. So in that year, they also started a pharmacy program, and they tried this, I guess this test trial of um, putting both groups together within the first year. first and second year. So this was like 200 students to one teacher. And I'm just like, how are you learning? Like everybody, I'm just hearing Arabic and I'm hearing this language and I'm just like, I can't concentrate. Like what's going on? Like it's a lot. I was not used to being in a classroom where you had this amount of students, just one teacher. I mean, I do understand having lectures like back in college when I was in Jamaica, we would have lectures, but that was just like one day out of the week. And then you go back to your small tutorial classes or your form classes. But having this every single day was just different. Like this now shift to my study pattern. This had caused me to want to learn a different type of way that was not what I was used to. Um, I was also now coming out of a system where back home, I for me personally, I would only read when I'm given a homework. So they'll be like, oh, go read chapter whatever, whatever, whatever. So I'm like, okay, I know I had to read this, and that's how I kept up. But now no one is giving me homework, and I'm just like, how do I read? Because I don't know how to read unless I'm prompted to read. I'm not a person who naturally reads. I had to be prompted to read. I'm just like, what am I supposed to do now? So there was so much changes going on, and I'm just like, it was a lot. It was a lot. There was also difference for me. I faced, I don't know if this is with every other school, but for my school, I faced there was a difference in how work ethics was carried out. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the Chinese culture, if it's just just my group of teachers. They could be hard. Like, and I'm just like, as an international student, I would want to be treated a certain way. Back home, international students are almost favored. They're like gods, everybody's like, oh yeah. But here I just felt like I was just being pushed aside. I'm just like, I'm just trying to have a conversation. Like, there was so much things. The good side of studying in China is I made network. Like I network with people who I would never thought I would ever come across with. Friends from all over the globe. Like I came to China and learned of countries I didn't even know existed. Like I'm just like, where is that? Where on the globe do I even look
Exactly.
for that? Like that's for me. That's one of the upsides of studying in China. Like you build your network, and these are networks that can last with you if you choose to. Like it last with you even after going back home. You can be like, oh, I know someone there or something like that. Um, also, I felt like my spiritual or my Christian growth took another level in China. I don't know. Like I think seeing other young persons my age group, and when I go to church and I see the way they worship, it kind of like dawned on me. I'm just like, whoa, like people really serving God here, and I'm just like, this is not something you see back home. So that allowed me to come out of my comfort zone and worship the way, and I guess get closer to God. And that was like a personal thing for me. So, I mean, that's not something that's generalized with everyone that will study in China, but that's something that happened personally for me. So that's been a little bit of studying in China.
That's nice. Okay, Dr. Ajwa, could you tell us your good and bad experiences in China? You have been in the undergraduate and you are now in postgraduate, so I think you have
Yeah, apparently so.
experience.
Yeah, not so different from Dr. Cindy's. I mean, there are some things that as she was talking, I just kept nodding my head. I was like, yeah, I identify with that as well. The glaring one, let me go to the thing we all want to get off our chest is the language, Chinese language. Like, even people who have some form of a course of Chinese language in their respective countries before they come here, they reach here and they realize that, yo, this Chinese is a different ballgame. And my very first experience is when I got at the Beijing International Airport and I was just stranded. I don't even know, like, I was just stranded. I was like, what's going on? And no one could speak one word of English, confusing me here and there. So that was the point. I was like, I really have to learn this language because I can't continue here. So I actually came here in 2013 for my MBBS, eager to come study, all of that, the enthusiasm. But the enthusiasm was not out of knowledge. I didn't really know what I was to expect. I didn't know what the school was supposed to give me. I didn't know what I, as an individual, had to prepare, So I just came enthused, but then not out of knowledge, just out of, all the feeling like finally I'm in med school, finally I'm going to be a doctor, finally, things are happening like I planned them to. So I got here in 2013, Chinese courses and all of that. And one of the main things I noticed is that the learning styles were different. Back at home, you have, the teacher who's on you, the assignments that are given you, the test you have to write. So one way or the other, you find a way to learn. Here, everything is left to you. you could go through a semester and not touch your book. Like, not a joke. You go through a semester and not touch your book. When exams are around the corner, you just, do some magic and you pass through. And you might think that you've actually accomplished something, but then when you sit back and analyze, you'll be like, yo, you did nothing. Like the entire semester, you did nothing. So that's one thing that I realized along the line, that the learning style was different. And so I now started seeking information. What am I supposed to do as a med student? But because before I came to med school, we were in high school. High school, we were doing the basic stuff. Coming to med school, no one told us this is what you're supposed to do. There's no guidance. Let me put it that way. There is no guidance, full stop. So you have to be self motivated. Everything is self. You have to do things by yourself. Sometimes you even have to demand things that the school is supposed to give to you, because the style of teaching in the Chinese system, they go to a lecture, a teacher talks, at the end of the day, pack their bags and they go back. They give them an exam or a test, they write it, they mark, they're done. But then with our system, like the question-based system, where you can ask questions in class, where teaching a topic begins with a problem, and after that we solve the problem. That whole experience was missing. So that was one major thing that I noticed. But then for me, when I came here in 2013, one major experience I had was I think in third year, summer holiday. I was here with a couple of friends and we were like, okay, so we're not going home for summer. We're not doing any hospital attachments or externships or observerships, and we're just wasting our time. So what do? Three of us, just that time we had those bikes, the e-bikes. I know all of you can relate. We got on the e-bikes and we were going from hospital. When we see a hospital, we get down, we enter the place. And with our little Chinese, we're like, we want to come and attach here, or we want to come for an observership. Will you accept us? So that's what we just took one day off and we're doing that. And no one was kind of responding positively because they're like, you're foreigners, we'll have to use English. We are not really ready to use English to help you with this. So we said, okay, let's go to a smaller place. It was a clinic nearby my apartment. So when we went there, luckily we found a lady doctor there. And she's like, oh, I do know a doctor in another hospital who speaks really good English, and you could go there and he will guide you. So we go there, not knowing that's our school's affiliated hospital. And this man later on became my mentor. So my experience, anything from there henceforth was guided by this mentor. He was the one who told me what to do, what to look out for. And I think that kind of sets me apart when it comes to most other students who come to school in China, because it was different for me in that regard. So one thing I picked up is having a mentor or someone to guide you, whether here or back in your respective country or wherever, is very key. It doesn't matter the knowledge you get, or some of us can cram knowledge, and we spit it out when you ask us, but then the application of it and just being an all-round good medical doctor is a whole different ballgame. Yeah, so with me in China, having that mentor really helped me. He took me to a volunteer programs. He took me to medical conferences. So it was a whole different ballgame, from which I really appreciate now when I look back at it. And another thing here too is I talked about the learning style, discipline. They do not discipline the foreign students. So it's like, you come to class, it's okay. You don't come to class, you go to the hospital attachment, it's okay. If you decide not to go, so with that attitude, if you're not careful, you will not build any good work ethic. And to be honest, 90% of being a doctor is work ethic. It's just getting up even when you're tired and going to work and seeing the next patient, even when you're uncomfortable. It's like the doctor is always a doctor. You're a mini god. Whenever the patients come, they expect you to deliver. So 90% of what you're going to do in the future, if you're in med school now, is the work ethic. How disciplined are you? How well will you take care of the patient? Sometimes you have to go learning again to be able to treat a certain case in the hospital. Learning doesn't stop in med school. I'm sorry to break this to you. You'll be learning your entire lives. Unfortunately so, because in everyday research, they're finding newer things. The definition of hypertension when I was in med school has changed. Now it's a different definition. Yeah, that's how fast science is advancing. So that's discipline. That is, in a way, lacking. You do meet few people who are quite, self-disciplined and all of that. But in a way, for foreign students, we don't really have that push and someone to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and to build that character and the work ethic for what we have to do in future. So yeah, Dr. Cindy has already said most of it. I just wanted to mention the few things that were peculiar to me. She also mentioned the lifestyle. Very true. We cannot talk about just education and leave out the lifestyle, because we spent 6 years of our formative adult years here. That when you break free from your parents and you finally come, into the world to soak it all in, China is the place you decided to come to. So the culture shock, yes, it was there. For me, particularly, things like smoking in public, all the spitting around. I'm like, yo, what's going on? It was hard, but you get used to it. It's not a positive thing, but yeah, it just you have to live with it. And when it comes to lifestyle too, coming here as a young adult by yourself, now you have to decide everything for yourself. As Dr. Cindy rightly said, you are nowhere near home. If I decide to go home right now, I have to plan a whole journey, hours and hours before I even get to my country. So it dawns on you, and like now you have to take charge for everything. If anything bad goes on in your life, you're responsible. If something good goes on, you're responsible. There is no mother to nudge you, father to knock you here. There's nothing like that. If you're lucky, you might get some really good friends that will kind of guide you and help you here and there, or you support each other, your support group here. Because of course, once you move here, you have to. I guess most people will have friends and their own, support group or clique that help each other here, support you here and there. Because it's not easy sometimes being away from home, feeling homesick, mental health issues. This is something I should talk about. I think I've witnessed about 5 cases of mental health issues since I came to China. Severe mental health issues. We do not talk about this much, but then it's not easy for some of us. Some of us, we survive, but it's not easy on everyone. And the experiences are different. Sometimes the change is too drastic for some people, and they don't have their community. There's something about having people who just get you and you don't have to say anything. And it's like your mom can just look at your face like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, there's just something about that community. So if unluckily you're unable to find something similar here, it can be quite hard. It can be missing home, and there are a lot of frustrations. I mean, people get frustrated like the food, the cuisine here. Some people have very restrictions per culture, beliefs, religion, whatever, self beliefs, and the food could even be a frustration to them. The way of lifestyle, the way the Chinese lifestyles, we say move, you move, sit, you sit. We go here, you go there. So all of these little things sometimes dampens on our mental health. And especially we as medical students, sometimes there's a failure here somewhere. There is that score you got, and you're like, what am I even doing here? Yeah. So in a nutshell, the experiences, the good and the bad, we all go through these things, but I just have to find a good balance so that one doesn't drain out the other. Yeah. So that was my experience here in China, and it still is continuing in China.
Wow, finding the balance. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing experiences.
Let me
So,
mention this too. I forgot the way
all
they
right.
speed through lectures. Like there's a schedule, and the teacher needs to finish. Like that is it. Nothing else. The teacher needs to finish. For him, it's that I completed the schedule. I'm done. And he can tell the school office that we have studied this. That's one of the very frustrating things. And it's, as a doctor said rightfully, you have to go back teaching yourself. I know that college, there's some level of self teaching and stuff, but then some of us didn't expect that much self teaching. So it's like everything you did in class for 3 hours, you can sit in an anatomy class for 3 hours and you barely hear anything because the teacher is just trying to finish through the chapters. So that's one bad thing I didn't really enjoy here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm in first year, and I think I've already got a slice of that speeding in lectures. Because when we started, I was like, oh my, where are we running
Yeah,
to?
it's a marathon.
But how has it been for you, Blessing? Like, how has it been so far as a medical student first year? It's starting off online, I assume.
Hmm.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
online, and we'll get to
How
the
do you do your
session.
anatomy practicals? How are you doing your dissections and stuff?
Okay, now we don't have anatomy practicals because the teacher said
Okay,
unless everyone, like unless we all get back to school before we can get there. But then about
that's
the
a good
speed,
plan.
when we
Yeah.
started, I was talking to Dr. Joe about it. We were running. I really felt like we were running in anatomy, especially because we were really running.
Mm-hmm.
He gives lecture, like we complete every lecture. I don't know how to even explain it, but we complete every lecture every week and every
Mm-hmm.
topic every week. The next week you have a new thing to learn and you're not even done with what you started last week.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It was
Yeah.
really funny. It was,
Exactly.
yeah. But but it was
I had a senior
amazing.
tell me that the only way to catch up is right after the lecture. You go and read all the PPTs of that lecture
Yeah, that's
before the
so true.
next class. Because if you just miss one lecture, it's like you've
You're gone.
missed 3 chapters of the book. So that's really true. That's really true.
Okay, thank you so much. If you are still with us, you can just also and text in your experiences in the chat room so that we can know. All right, let's go
Yeah,
to the
let's compare
successes and the
experiences.
failures. Yes, the successes and the failures.
Personal
Doctor.
successes and failures.
Mhm.
Uh, one major success for me is that I completed medical school. I mean, yo, it's not easy. No, you can't underestimate it. Sometimes when things happen in certain ways that you think you planned them, you might underestimate it. But there are so instances where you could have dropped out of school, where you could
Yeah.
have given up, where you could have just said, yo, I'm done. Let's find something else and do with this life.
Yeah.
To begin with, you're going to be in school longer than most of your peers. That's the reality. 6 to 7 to 8 years, depending on where you school. And then during this entire period, medicine has a way of making even the smartest people feel like you know nothing. I don't know. It's true. It's like, it's no, because think about it. Most of the people that go to medical schools are, we say they are the top smartest people of every class or country or any geographical area. But then within the medical school, that is where you see these smartest people struggling to just figure out what that physiology book is trying to say or what that biochem, that Krebs cycle, you can memorize that thing for like 10 times. And you're like,
Perfect.
yo, was I even smart to begin with? So it has a way of, of getting to you. So I'm very grateful that I completed medical school, and I didn't just complete, but I actually came out with knowledge worth the money I paid as my school fees. Yeah, so and that's one very major success that I really celebrated on my graduation day, because like after everything, after all the challenges, we made it. Yeah, so if you're still in med school, hang on, you will make it. Okay, with God on your side, yeah, we need this motivation. Because recently I was chatting with someone and I was like, now that I'm doing postgraduate, I look back and I realize that this medicine thing, this med school thing, is all about your mental capability. You just have to be
Yeah.
positive mentally, because once you're strong mentally, you can soar through. You're not going to excel all the time, but you can soar through. But once mentally you begin to weaken, it's terrible. It's a downslope from there. So yeah, one of the major successes. Failures. I remember this, I'll never forget. One major failure was an anatomy test we took unannounced. And to show you the extent of failure, in a class of about maybe 60 plus people, we had only one person pass that anatomy test.
Wow.
So yeah, we failed together. But then that moment, that moment, it was a turning point for me. It opened my eyes to the reality of things. I was like, no, this cannot be it. I can't struggle and get here. And this is the way anatomy is in the first year. This is not the way I'm starting off medical school. It can't be it. And this was not an end of semester exam. It was just, the teacher just entered the class and just gave us something, which we were not happy about. But later on, when other teachers weren't doing that, we were now asking they do that for us. Yeah, so that was one major failure that I will not forget. I was like, it's not like I got zero, but I didn't get the pass mark. I'm like, no, I came here purposefully for this. So that was the point where I had to change some things, sit up, make sure that I started reading. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to know? What learning techniques? All of those. Those times we had YouTube, but then we didn't use YouTube for the right things. We used to go there for all other things, but to seek knowledge about our craft or what we are actually studying. Yeah. So when it comes to, as for failures, there were many ones, but then in the end we graduated. That's the point. Yeah. So basically, that's it for me. Dr. Cindy, I don't know about you.
Okay, so success. I think success for me it's personal growth. That would
Mhm.
be my major success. I feel like I've grown as an individual, being in China or studying in China. And just being able to make it this far. Because I keep telling my classmates the fact that you've made it to medical school, you're not competing.
Mm-hmm.
You've already cut out. Like it doesn't matter if you studied abroad or you studied back home because you are not the only student. Even studying abroad, people tend to want to shun it down. I'm like, you're not the only student who applies. So the fact that you got accepted meant that someone did not get accepted. So
Mm-hmm.
just being here in this moment, basking in it, this is a success story in itself. Like looking back
Yeah.
at everything that got me to this point is a success story at itself. Failures, I don't like negativity. So failure is just like,
I like that. I like the attitude. But
failure.
sometimes it's good to remember them so that they will just
Yeah,
move you in the right direction, like sit up.
that's true. That's true. But for me, failure, it wouldn't necessarily be failure. I wouldn't term it failure, but I feel like it's more of looking back or looking across, not looking back, looking across for say, when I kind of think if I had gone another path, would I be further in life? Would I have certain things attained? I'm still living a student life at a certain type of age. This is not where I want to be. Stuff like that. I'm just like, is it worth the sacrifice? So that's the only part I can
No.
see as a, I guess, the downside of medicine. You are going to spend a lot of years in school.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of years. There are certain sacrifices that you may take. I'm not sure if other people feel it, but especially for women, when it comes down to family, when it comes down to marriage, when it comes down to having kids, there are certain things that are going to be much more delayed if you're going down a certain type of path in medicine versus when you see your friends, you're like, so you're going to be that auntie who's not married. Like, what's going on? you know? So there are sacrifices that you have to take, and you have to be sure and certain that you're ready to take this path because unless you're willing to start over, which again, I this is what I want people to understand. It's also okay to start over. I don't want persons to feel like, oh, I have started medicine, now my life is stuck and I just have to finish it. If you do realize somewhere in your journey, and as Dr. Ajua said, that your mental health just cannot manage it, it is okay to stop. It is okay to take a
Yeah.
breather here. It's okay to pause and start over. I mean, life is not on a timeline. What we know with cultures and parents and
The
type of
pressures of
like
life.
expectations, exactly, this unsaid expectations that hovers over our head. They do hang there and they do somewhat guide us, but it should not be the ultimate path that everyone is destined to walk through. So yeah, that's it.
Looks like we're all just successful people.
Speaking is into being, manifesting it.
Yeah, exactly. But the important thing is that is to let people, because I know that on the reality, there are some, what you might deem as a failure, I might not deem as a failure. That's the difference. And as you said rightfully, the definition of failure for some people, it's, oh, I learned something new. Oh, I thought it was going to work this way, but no, I discovered myself in another light. So yeah, the thing is that you just have to interpret your failure in a positive way, yeah. But there'll be down moments. There'll be times where there's a time you write a test and you feel confident, like this is it. I'm talking about tests because in medical school we are evaluated all the time. Like to know whether you're good or not is based on your exam score. Whether you understand, especially here in China, most of it's just the exam score. There is nothing else to
Yeah.
really evaluate you. Yeah. So that's how you know whether you're making progress or not. And then your parents will call and be like, oh, how was that exam? How did things go? How are you spending our money indirectly, And sometimes you meet this what do you call it, these like blocks on the road where there's a particular
Hurdles.
course that yeah you find difficult particularly, and all of that. At that point in time, it's okay to acknowledge that this is hard for me, but I'm not going to give up, and you work towards it. Yeah. So we all do fail, please don't get us wrong, but just that your relationship to your failure is going to determine the outcome of it. Don't just wallow in it and just give up. So far as you don't give up, you win. So yeah.
Yeah. Probably, I think university or no, med school is probably where you start kissing those 90s and 80s scores,
Uh,
and you take pride when you see a 70 and a 60, you just, I did that. Because those days are long gone.
mm-hmm.
All right, let's move to the motivation and challenges. What motivated you to stay through? Because you were challenged, you went through a lot. What kept you in med school? There are many people that, as you already said, they go through and they're like, I can do this anymore, and they go out and all that. So, what kept you in med school? Your motivation and your challenges.
Who goes first? Dr. Cindy?
Dr. Cindy, there you go.
You guys. Okay, so for me, my motivation is looking back at the sacrifices that got me here. Like knowing what was placed on the line to get me to this point was the only reason why I kept pushing through because I just had too many people who had hopes, who
Mm-hmm.
gave a lot of things up for me to just turn around and be like, I don't want it anymore. I would not be able to sleep with myself. Like, even if I did ever, for some crazy idea, wish that, okay, I'm not going to do medicine, I would still have to complete this just because of I knew what they have gone or what they have done rather for me to get here. It is my mother's dream. Like this, I love my mom dearly. Like, this is her dream. I have to make sure I make it. Like, and I mean, like the way I am, the things that I've said, I can't go back on my own self now. Like I've already spoken it. So people are looking like, oh, really? You're gonna be I'm like, yes, and I'm gonna show you that I'm gonna do it. So that's really my motivation, like sacrifices that have got me here and just proving to myself, proving to others for sure. There are people I really want to prove to them that I can do this. Like I know I can. So that's it. I'm not even gonna try to fancy it up. That's the reason. That is the reason.
Yes,
My turn, I
please.
guess. Yeah, my motivation. Okay, so my motivation, of course, it stems from the why. Why did you start
Mm,
all of this? You know, the very first time he decided, people come to China with with different stories. Some people were
mm,
asked to come, they came. Some people got the opportunity. Some people had a whole admission procedure. Yeah. So why? Why did you go through in the beginning? Because when you come, you know, that enthusiasm when you first arrive to med school or when you get that admission letter, that same enthusiasm was, yeah, it's driven, like at that point it's like you're 100% maximum
yeah.
full tank everything. You're like optimistic, you're like this is going to go well and all of that. So your why are you doing what you do? And another source of motivation for me is my belief, right? I know that this is hard, but I have strength from above, so it motivates me. Sometimes things are hard, sometimes it's just, and you know, whilst you're in med school, it's not like everything else in the world stops for you. Life happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going. Yeah, I know of people that whilst you're in med school, you lose a loved one. Whilst you're in med school, some maybe they are in a relationship or something, things go like ugly. Whilst you're in life continues, even though it's, and these things affect each other in one way or the other. So sometimes you have to fall on something bigger than yourself to make sure that you still keep your sanity. So that was one thing for me. And another thing for me was the community I had, my family. As I told you, from a very age, they all knew this is the girl that's gonna be the doctor in the family. So it's like, yeah, yeah. There was that support group, my family, and I spoke of a mentor. That man it's just God sent. Full stop. That's all I can say. That man is just God sent, and I friends back at home, a few of them back at home, and also some very good friends I made here, who like especially in med school, when you come, you have to find people in the same community, the medical community, who understand and go through. Because some things you can't really go explaining to your parents; they won't really get you. How you're struggling with physiology, I don't know, but there's some things that happen pertaining to med students that your fellow med students will get you, you know. And sometimes, yeah, you'll
It's
just
funny
help.
you said that because I literally have a
Uh-huh.
physiology textbook right here that
Oh
I'm studying.
yeah, I keep saying physiology. I don't know why, but yeah, high physiology. It's been long. Okay. So yeah, there are some things that only people in the medical field, like a doctor, or like my mentor, for instance, is a doctor. He's a cardiologist and a geriatrician. So there are some things I will express to him, and he will understand me better than me expressing that to my mom. You get it?
Yeah.
So all these people said that, like, when it comes to my motivation pool, these are the people you find there: my family, my friends, my mentor, my belief. And of course, I try to motivate myself. It's not easy, but once in a while, I just be like, yo, sit up, do this. It's for your good. Yeah. So that is what motivated me mostly and still motivates me.
Thank you so much.
You're
I think
welcome.
I'm even motivated from your motivation. Yeah, thank you. And if you're still with us and you can type, you can just type in your motivation.
Sure.
Why are you still in med school? What is still motivating you to
Mm-hmm.
keep up with the hard work, keep up with the journey? and all that.
And sorry, let me
All
bring
right,
this
so
in.
we
Can
move
I say this
to,
quickly? Yeah, one
okay,
final motivation. I think it just
yes,
escaped me too is, I told you about how I don't know, but I have this passion to be able when you see me traveling to China, for instance, I've experienced the healthcare system here, right? And we from our respective countries also know the nature of the healthcare system. Even when you growing up, you hear stories of people say going to the hospital. Some people, not everyone has access to healthcare. Not everyone has access to, you know, basic things that could improve their life health wise. So that's one major motivation for me. Is like you're not just doing this for yourself. You know, the doctor, you don't belong to yourself, you belong to the people. So you're not just doing this for yourself, you're thinking of that patient whose life will be in your hand one day. When you are the only bridge between life and death for an individual, you're the only bridge between tears and laughter for a family or the loved ones of that individual. So sometimes you think about that and like, I don't want to be that doctor who just because I didn't put in the work or whatever reason, I couldn't deliver the best that I have. Yeah, so that's it scares me and it motivates me at the same time.
okay. So we go to study opportunities during and after studies. Many people say that in China,
Mm-hmm.
you are limited, you are restricted, you can't do a lot, you can't do so many things because you are studying. But there are also study opportunities as you study and even after studying here in China. So could you highlight on that? Mm, Dr. Cindy.
Me or Dr. Joa?
Cindy.
Yes, Dr.
Oh,
Cindy.
your mic is very low. Okay, so study opportunities during natural med school. I'm always in trying to find ways to keep yourself in the know. Um, I'm not sure with the whole pandemic, but I do know that there is a group called Med Forum based in China. It was started by a Ghanaian student who is now a doctor back home, Paul. I don't remember his last name, but Dr. Paul. Yeah, so he has a group
Yeah.
called Met, he has a platform called Met Forum, and they usually organize seminars and
Medical
events,
conferences.
medical conferences within China and stuff like that. He has also gone ahead and organized elective programs outside of China. So if you wish to do an elective or your core elective, like in the United States or so, he does have that. But I know it's been on hold because of the pandemic since last year, but it has been active ever since until last year. And hopefully, with God's willing, by next year it should commence and continue forward. Um, there are a lot of groups that you can join depending on what your interest is in. So for me, I am interested in um, women's health. So for those who may be looking along that path or something that's aligned to that, there's a group called Ladies in Medicine on Facebook. You can join them. They usually post anything that allows you to get um, like online certifications, like you might do like a 1 week course or shadowing a doctor virtually. Not everything is moving virtually, there's stuff like that. So there's Ladies in Medicine, there's Fem Health, that's FEMHEALTH, and that's on Facebook and Instagram. There's also an Alzheimer's Association International Conference that's held every single year. It's virtually now, and you can, those who are into research can also post their research publications on that. There is pre-health virtual shadowing. This is a group that it's a UT, which is University of Texas here. The university does a virtual shadowing program every Tuesday on Zoom, and for each program you attend, they give you a 2 hour. It's a 2 hour long. They give you a certification of that, and you can use this on your application if you're applying to anything like any elective programs here in the United States. Um, there's also ACE. ACE is the US branch for Med Forum. You can also contact them if you want to do your electives in the United States, which is something I usually do within your fifth year, or if you want to even before that, if you want to do like a shadowing and stuff like that, you can do that. You can look into electives in your country, in your own home country. So for me, after in third year, I went back to Jamaica, and every summer I usually do a observership, and although you go as an observer, they actually allow you to get hands-on practice. So you're not just standing behind the doctor just watching. Like they would probably tell you do this or do you know how to do this, and they'll question you like because you're going with the groups of students who are studying back home. So they're gonna treat you like them. So you need to know your stuff. Like, you're gonna be pressured and stuff like that. You can also further your education. Like, medicine does not just stop at after China or just after MBBS. You can go ahead and do a postgraduate. You can specialize. You can go into public health. There are many avenues you can branch off into. It's not just an MBBS program and then I'm a doctor and that's it. No, you can push yourself right through. You can be a doctor of a doctor. So if you get it, I'm not sure if most of you know what the procedure is because this is an issue that I had when I came. I was the only Jamaican in my school. So no one was really there as a senior to tell me like, oh, this is what's going to happen when you go back home and what you're going to do. Because I was just like, what is the difference between internship? What is that elective? What is clerkship? I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Like, what am I doing? I just know they say you do something after fifth year, you go for a year, you come back, you graduate. And so now, now I can actually explain it. So after you've done the first 2 years or the first 3 years in China, you do your pre-medical courses, which is your pharmacology. No, sorry, yeah, your pharmacology, your anatomy, your histology, like just anything that doesn't require you to be in the hospital is called your pre-medical, pre-clinical courses. And then after that, you do your core clinical courses. Then you start doing stuff like dermatology, gynecology, pediatric surgery. Now, once you've done all of this in your fifth year, you complete 2 semesters and then you go off for core clerkship. Although China uses the term internship, it's not the correct verb. It's a core clerkship. Internship is something that you do after you've graduated medical school. You're now in a hospital and you're gonna work. You have to be an intern in that hospital, and then so what you're doing as a medical student is called a core clerkship. Once you've completed that, you return back to China. You sit the final exams. You graduate, and then you go back home to your country, respective country, and you either do an internship there and then sit their board exams, or depending, they may have you sit the board exams first and then you intern. So that's basically the procedure of becoming a doctor. And after which, if you're now trying to specialize like Dr. Ajua, then you do what's called a residency. So depending on what type of specialization that you're trying to get into, your residency may vary from like 4 years for gynecology for you to probably 8 years for neurosurgery. Exactly. You have that residency period where you're a resident in a specific field. And then you can also do an additional year or two, which is called a fellowship. If you want to be like, for instance, you want to do for gynecology, I'm going to do a 4 year residency, and then I might do a additional 1 year in like maternal health diseases or fetal maternal health diseases, which are not a subdivision of gynecology. They're just specific for like genetic problems with mothers. So that's non-term as a fellowship. And then that's how you specialize in a particular, I guess, department of medicine that you wish to practice. But outside of that, if for what I realize that most persons are scared of um, going into medicine once they leave China, especially like say coming to the States, or if you're not planning to go back to your home country, you're just like, oh, I can't sit the board exam, I pass it. Oh, USMLE is too hard, or the PLAB is too hard, or I don't know, the India one, AIMS, or it's too hard as MCI, that's the name, MCI. So you have something that's called PA, which is a physician assistant. You can look into becoming a PA if you don't choose to go down the medical route, as in the doctor route. If you're outside of the country, you can go into PA. You can do nursing. You can do the business aspect of medicine, which has to do with they're called medical etists. So these are the people who would decide whether or not it's okay for a family to take the part, like a relative of life support. These are also avenues you can go into. There's billing, medical billing and insurance. This HR director of of a hospital. I mean, these are also you have someone running it as a business. It's not just doctors, doctors, doctors. So there's medical IT. Like there are different avenues that you can branch up into if you want to do medicine, but probably not in your country. So these are other options that you can look into. Yeah.
All right. So for the opportunities during studies, Dr. Cindy has mentioned a lot of them already. And I noticed that most of them she mentioned pertain mostly to the US side, I think. Yeah. But I noticed that here in China, for example, a large population from Africa, and then we'll have Asia, other parts of Asia, and yeah, maybe the Caribbeans too. We do have some, yeah, people come from there and all that. So usually with us, we just come to school and just go through it first to sit here. Some of us would decide to go home and do an attachment, which is a very good way to start actually.
Yep.
But the thing with
Everyone should do that.
attachment, yeah, attachments, observerships, or externships. These terminologies are used differently per medical system. Like the internship, the clerkship, it's kind of changes per the medical system, but then sometimes they do mean the same thing. So we have something like the externships. Externships usually mean that you do it in a hospital that's not affiliated to the one you're studying in. So let's say
Mm.
I come to your school's hospital to do an attachment, it's an externship. Yeah, like an external internship or something like that. And then there are those observerships. Yeah. But the problem here with China is that mostly our schools do not arrange for these opportunities for us. Because usually in other medical schools in some countries, I've spoken to people who schooled in Romania, in Russia, in other places. They do organize and they start going to the clinic right from first or second year, where
Yeah.
they start with like nursing practice. Then they advance and they're given more responsibilities as the time go. But unfortunately, in China, there isn't that set up where the school organizes together with the affiliate hospital to get students to do these kind of things. Currently, my university here, they do have a form of a program which is run during the summer where the students can register and then kind of attach in a smaller hospitals around the city. Yeah. But usually, even apart from this, there are externship and observership programs that you can apply for in and outside of China, mostly outside of China, because I do have classmates, one of them who applied and had it in the US, another one was in Australia. But we are not aware of these things. You have to go on the internet and search. There is no manual, there is no book where you're going to go and find all of these things. You have to search for them and find them. And I also even found one in Austria, Medical University of Graz. They were also offering that you have to pay most of the time,
Mm.
it will have to be self-funded. So you have to consider your finances and the people who support you and all of that. If they can afford it, I'll advise for you to go for it.
Yep.
It's very important. The experience it's different. I think the easiest way is to go back to your home country and attach in a hospital because going back home, the cost will be different. You don't need any visa fees. If you decide to go to a different country, apart from the program fee itself, accommodation, visa,
Mm.
all these little expenses will also come into play. If you can afford it, great, go for that. It's an amazing thing. It's like you get travel and study at the same time per one trip. Yeah. But if you can't, it's also okay for you to go back to your home country, find a hospital where they are going to allow you, because sometimes some of the hospitals are not so welcoming from stories I've heard. So find a place where at least a doctor will be in charge of you and ensure that you're having continuing education whilst you're there. And apart from that one, to other opportunities are medical conferences and meetings. Dr. Cindy already mentioned. I'm familiar with Med Forum. Actually, I attended two of their conferences whilst I was in med
Yeah.
school in Shanghai and Beijing. Maybe we met, maybe we did not.
Probably. I did the one in Shanghai in 2018, I think.
Then we did. I was there. Okay. So prior to Medform, there was nothing like that here in
Yeah, I
China. I
know.
think it was the first, and I was excited. Boy, was I
Yeah.
excited! Because at that point in time, I had already started reading, and I knew that other medical schools around the world are going for externships. They're doing volunteer jobs. They're doing stuff. Because let me tell you the reality of it. Nowadays, it's not about your MBBS certificate. Because we all get it. It's about the extra
Exactly.
stuff. It's about the little things. Somebody will be like, why do you think people come to Africa? And like, I volunteered in Africa for 2 months. I went to this place for, those kind of things. I helped. It could be the person went and was just maybe carrying the syringes. That's all the person did. But then the experience, it shows to your employer or whatever opportunity that you
Yeah.
have that this person has applied himself, to gain more knowledge and to gain, yeah, in this field. So it's very important that if you do have the opportunity for these things, attend them. Some of us are
Yeah.
having internships here in China in the hospital. Sometimes you can tell your professor, there's some teachers that you relate well with, that if there are any English meetings, conferences, whatever, they should invite you. You'll be willing, like you're interested in such things. Because I also attended a couple of them in my internship hospital. We actually had one professor. My mentor had a professor come from the UK. His specialty is in Parkinson's, and he came for a conference and all of that. And maybe because he was my mentor, yeah. But I was in charge of translation, and I was part with him, talking with him, talking about the UK system and all of that, exchanging info. Just soaking it all in. I'm like, okay, so you are there. Tell me, how did you make it? How did things go? Yeah. So seek for these opportunities. They won't come
Yeah.
and find you. Your teachers won't come
Mhm.
and post it in your class group. It won't happen. It does not happen. So look for these things. As she rightly said, she has interest in gynecology. So she goes on Facebook and she's looking for gynecology groups. What is your interest? When you go on Facebook, what do you look for? Yeah, it's true. What is your interest? When you go on YouTube, what do you look for?
True.
As I said, you have to look up to people who are in. If you want to get to a place and someone is already there, it's just wise that you look up to that person and say, yo, how did you get there? And the person guides you one way or the other. And thankfully for social media, now people
Mhm.
can do that from, all across the globe. So that is another opportunity you have to. The thing with opportunity studying here in China that they won't come looking for you. In other places, the school have like a very the plan is very scripted
Yeah.
where they tell you this is the opportunity. Summer, you want to go here, this is what you can
Just
do.
coming
I'm
up.
sorry, in China, you do not get such things. You have to go fishing. I told you how I went one summer holiday looking for a hospital to take me in. And finally, I did find a hospital and I found my mentor. If I had stayed home that day, I'm not saying everybody should go out doing that. If it's not for you, please. Yeah.
Not
But
during the
then if I,
pandemic, please.
yeah, yeah, exactly. If I hadn't
Mhm.
stepped out that day, it would have never happened for me. No,
Mhm.
I remember we went to the school office and we told them that we wanted to do an attachment. They said it's not possible. We can only do it in our fifth year and sixth year. That is what the school said. So let's say I was a bit disobedient, maybe. But then I went out there and I'm like, no, I have to, because I saw that people were doing this when I read online, the advice people give, and it's important for my training. It's just reading the book, reading the book, reading the book. It's different when you're with the patient face to face. And that's when they ask you to ask a history and like you've forgotten everything. But your diagnostics book,
Mhm.
you memorize the whole process. So it's like the goal is in the practice. In medicine, it's the practice. It's a practice. It's not a theory based, it's different from people who do like AI and stuff and all the algorithms and just sit and apply their theory. No, for us, it's the practice. So
Mhm.
the more you practice, it becomes like a memory. Like it just
Yeah.
happens. You don't have to think so hard to let it happen.
Yep.
So please, if you have the opportunity, the easiest way, the one with the least financial burden, is doing it back in your home country. If you have the
But
opportunity to go to other places too, you can also consider that. Search for it online. Make sure they are credible, please. There's a lot of scam around.
that's
So make
true.
sure they are credible. You're dealing with the main people. If you have to call them, call them. Make sure that if it's a university, this is the university office, the address, everything goes to make sure that you don't suffer at the hands of scammers and people lying on the internet.
Just to
And
even add
after,
on that,
mhm,
wait, just to even add
mhm,
on that,
mhm,
like even students currently, like students who may now be studying online, like it's much
mhm,
more easier to even get a contact of your teacher because everyone is, I'm
yeah.
assuming everyone is in like this one WeChat group. I don't want teacher, just like, oh, hi, Laoshi, hi. Like just
Yeah.
familiarize yourself. Like if it's one subject that you like particularly, you can say hi. I mean, I'm not sure they will allow you now, but what I used to do is
Mhm,
I would find one really good teacher. I would add
mhm,
them up on my WeChat and I would, periodically send a hi message. And then I had this hand surgery teacher that I really liked. And I told him, I
mhm,
was like, can I come one day when you're doing surgery? Like, I didn't go through this. I just asked him, like, when you have time, is it okay if I can come? He's like, yeah. And he told me, like, these days are good. I'm like, all right. And I went to the hospital. Like, you have to apply yourself in medicine. Like, you're not gonna
exactly.
come and say, "Oh, come and learn." Like if
No,
you
it won't
don't, it will
happen.
go through the system and almost don't exist. You have to apply yourself. You need to be known
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you're gonna need all of those letter of recommendations, and you can't pop up
Mhm.
6 years later and say, "Oh, no, she, do you remember
Do
me?
you remember me?
Who are you?" Like you need to make sure that yourself, like your face, your name, something rings a bell. Like, oh, even if they don't know you, I have your WeChat. You remember me, or so even if you probably have no conversation with them, just send them a message once and just like, can I come on this day? Or when is it okay that I can come and see you do
Yeah.
this or do a clinical, do a surgery? And some of them will actually allow you once. Like the things with Chinese teachers, if they
Mostly
see that
they
you're
will.
trying to push yourself there, they're gonna tell you they're not gonna say no. They will say no if they don't know you and you just randomly come up in the last minute. All of a sudden you're like, oh, give me this or whatever. But apply yourself. Like try to save those WeChat contacts now. Not everybody, don't be a stalker just saving, but find one good teacher. You think like, oh, the teacher was good. Like interact in these classes, like interact so they can see, oh, this friend's always talking. So when you actually do ask, they'll be like, all right, fine, come. Because that's what I did.
Yeah. And usually, actually, most doctors, being a doctor, one part of your job description that is not written down is that you are a teacher.
Yeah.
That is it. That's the way the medical system works. A doctor teaches another doctor, and then you raise another one. So usually, most of them are more than willing to teach. But then, as I said, with foreigners, there is no pressure for us. Even for the local Chinese, there's no pressure for them. And it's even worse for us because they have this ideology that for foreigners, we are lazy. We
Mm.
don't really care.
You're just
We just come and
rich.
pass through. Yeah, I remember when I first went meeting my mentor, and he told us that we should come. Okay, we want to learn. Fine, we should come for morning around 8 a.m. every time.
Mm.
If you go 2 minutes late, the eye this man will give you. And at the same time, I was having lectures in the medical school,
Mm.
and the hospital was across town, the other side of town. So my friends and I had to wake up like earlier to make sure that we get there. You know, sometimes lectures start at 10 a.m. or at noon, maybe after the lunch break. Yeah. So he had a schedule. So he
Mm.
knows when we have class and when we don't. And at that time, it was like, at a point in time, he told us that he was checking to see if we would be consistent. If not, he would have just stopped. But
Mm.
he noticed that we really wanted to learn something. And so he also gave all out. He started introducing us to more doctors. What do you need to learn? He'll introduce you. You go and learn, that kind of thing. So as we are saying here, guys, it's very important for you. You have to make it happen for yourself.
Yeah.
Opportunities don't come flying through your window. You have to search and seek for them. Sometimes even after you found it, there was this very good example of my classmate got an externship opportunity in the US, right? And then our university had to do some correspondence with the university in the US, some documentation and all of that. And our university had no idea how that correspondence must be done. He almost lost that place because our university was negligent of how the correspondence must be done. So you
Mm.
find my friends and I, when we had the extension opportunity, we were writing the letters and whatever, written work and give it to the school and they look at it and they put the stamp and like, okay, this is to think of it, this is not your job. You could just be like, forget this. How can my university not know? It's the sad reality,
Yeah.
So yeah, but at least after we did that, now if there's a junior who goes there, they're like, oh, okay, we saw this before. Maybe they'll pull out a letter and be like, look at this and make a copy. Yeah, so I'm saying that it might not be easy, depending. Some schools have more experience with foreign students, some schools have less experience with foreign students. I really understand the differences there. But then the thing is, at the end of the day, our problems are very similar. And the only difference you can make is you applying yourself and fighting for what you want. So if you're out there, as I said, externships, observerships, attachments, look for them. Research opportunities, if you do
Mm.
get them. Some universities have like, very strong research background base. And sometimes even some of your teachers, as you said, interact with them, you will know. If you don't talk to them, you won't know. We had one respiratory disease teacher, this pulmonologist. This one was literally on our necks. Our necks. She was organizing classes for us. She was doing, all the extra. And for her motivation was that she was a foreign student in Canada and she knew
Mm.
how it felt like. So she's like, no one looks out for the foreign students. And
Mm.
that's the gospel truth. It's like, I'm dedicating myself to look out for you guys. So she organizes lectures, calls in other doctors to deliver them. Sometimes we are not coming. She's calling us on WeChat. That woman went all out. Like she was Dr. Chalfie, wherever you are. Yeah, kudos to you. But as I'm saying, few times you meet such people, but most
Yeah.
often than not, it's not like that. You will have to be the one chasing them and, applying yourself, making sure you get what you want. So if there's a research opportunity, and you think you can go for it, go for it. It's a good thing to have. It's an amazing thing to graduate from MBBS undergraduate and you have a published
Or
paper. You don't
research.
even have to be the
Mm-hmm.
first author. It's so rare. You like when we find MBBS students who are published, you're like one of the top people in your class. I had a Chinese friend there. She was a Chinese, like the same class, but she was in the Chinese class and I was in the foreigners class. And I made friends with her, of course. And that girl was brilliant and she had published. And I'm like, how did you do it? No one even told us this was a possibility. We didn't even know that. It was like, for her, for the Chinese people, they give them mentors. They are assigned mentors in the hospital. So the mentor encouraged her and she wrote it all that. And because of that publication, she got a straight flight to university in Shanghai. Like she didn't even have to write the postgraduate exam. It's like you go select. So they go for
Yeah.
interviews in the top schools they want. And then the schools are kind of begging them to, oh, join us, join us. And then you choose where you want to go in the end. So please, if you do have a research opportunity, go for it. It's also a good thing to do. After your medical school, as you said, that is one of the major crossways for medical students. When you complete, what next? What do I do? Am I going home? Am I doing PG? Am I moving to another country? I'm talking about IMGs, international medical graduates. This is the big thing. Am I going back to work? In even some countries, when you go back home, you don't need to write a license exam. They just award you the license. I know some countries when you go, you do a 1 year internship, then you're awarded the license. In other countries, you have to do the license exams, then you're awarded the license. But irrespective of all these differences, people have a hard time deciding because these are life changing decisions. Like, do I further my education? Do I go home first? Do I whatever? Do I stop this medicine and put it aside? People take a break, a sabbatical, maybe go get married, have kids, whatever. Then they come back after some time. You're like, okay, let's face medicine again. So after graduation, you have an option to do your postgraduate. And she has mentioned, Dr. Cindy mentioned a lot. Apart from doing it in like the clinical specialties, there's also research. Weirdly, somehow nowadays, I'm advocating for research because they're the ones that drive medicine. It's true.
Yeah.
The groundbreaking therapies, the new cancer treatments, the new drug for malaria, they are the ones responsible. So if all of us jump into the clinic and do no research, medicine is going to be stunted at a point in time. So if in med school you genuinely know that you have interest in research, go for it. I know of one colleague who's right now doing full-time research. For her, that is what she wants. She just wants to be in the lab and poke the mice and the rats and just figure things out and tell us what to do. Yeah, so if you also have that interest, go for it. Most of the time, there are scholarships all over the world for people who are interested in research because it's I think they're trying to lure people there. So yeah, it's a good pathway to go down. And you might maybe be the next Nobel Prize winner. We never know. So go for that too. And if not research, then you can also do residency training or the clinical masters and non-clinical masters. Non-clinical, like there are these, what they call it, public health. Some people do things like health economics. Some people do, it depends on the interest you have. As you said, the hospital, there are many branches, there are many things that come together to make the hospital or the healthcare system work. It's not just about the doctor injecting the drugs or the nurse or just the pharmacist. There's the person, as you said, the medical IT. There are people, even insurance. In countries where insurance is really a big deal, yeah, there's this the insurance that makes that things run smoothly. Then there are people who are like the medical machinery, who operate them, who repair them, medical engineering. Yeah, so there are all these ones, and administration of hospitals, as you rightly said. So you have to begin to identify your interest as you're getting near the end of the MBBS program. That this is what I'm interested in, and you have to also consider your lifestyle choices. Would you like to live 14 hours in the hospital a day? Would you like to what is your priorities? Let me put it that way.
Lord.
Yeah. So what are your priorities? Are you okay being in the OR 20 hours on call? Are you okay being called in the middle of the night that your patient just bled and you have to come back and take him to the OR? Or are you just okay being an ophthalmologist? And then there's no emergency in ophthalmology. They'll just put the person there and be like, okay, the doctor will come at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. the next morning. If that's what you want, go for it. You
What
want to be a
works for
dermatologist.
you?
This is not to make any specialty sound less. No,
Yeah.
they are all important. You want to be a dermatologist, the skin doctor, make our skin look good. Good. Plastics, yes. So you have to consider, is family more important to you? There are some other factors. Life is not all about medicine. I'm sorry to break this to you. In med school, you might feel like it's all about medicine. Once you complete and step into the real world, there are major things, major things. There's marriage, there is life, there's sometimes, in as much as you're a doctor, there are other goals you want to accomplish. There's like you talked about being interested in art. Maybe you want to open an art gallery one time, and you're in a specialty you're in a specialty where you clock in maybe 60 plus hours or 70 plus hours a week, and that leaves you with no time plus family and all of that. So you consider all these things and you make your decision for after your MBBS. Thank you very much. I think I spoke a lot.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. That is so insightful.